The only reason that we even got away with it, one of the leaders in our platoon, he was the person doing the drug test. So like you task leaders out with different jobs. Sharp, which is like sexual harassment, assault response and prevention. EO, equal opportunity. The UA, which is the guy who does the drug test. He could like kind of give us a hint, like, hey guys, clean up because in like X amount of days we're going to do a drug test. So then everyone would get clean. But then once the new leadership came in, they took that responsibility from him, and then next thing you know, like, 4 or 5 of our guys are popping hot for cocaine. A lot of people did heroin and meth. That was really bad. I lost a lot of friends actually in the army from overdoses from that kind of stuff. More times than not, like a lot of people in the military, I would say more so on like the combat jobs, the military police, the infantry, cavalry, we all do steroids. Like it's like so normal for us to like, do steroids. Like I'm over here putting, Test and Anavar, Tren in, my ass, literally bending down and like, no, but everyone does it. And like, you have to specifically test for that stuff, but they know like it's to get bigger and stronger so that I can go and kill the enemy. So they didn't care too much about that. But when it came to drugs itself, yeah, you just wanted a quick turnaround. I like did heating and air conditioning. I went to technical school in high school. I like got fully certified. I did that for like 2 or 3 years. And then like the recession of 2008 came in. Like, I was living in a house. I had these cars. I lost everything. So then I like moved back in with my dad. I did that for like a year. I was working at Putt Putt and I was making like $4 an hour. And I just realized like this isn't really the life for me. I got like super patriotic or something in like early 2009, and then like by late 2009 that's when I like decided, hey, I'm gonna pull the trigger and join the military, like join the army. My dad was in the army and did a lot of years. It was like 14 years as a tanker. So I was like, maybe I'll follow in his footsteps, and like if I do, I want to like surpass his rank. So like I just want to like, I don't know, like be a good son or something. I don't know. So like I was walking through the mall, and like this is when they don't do it too much anymore. But like there was a recruiting station at the mall, so it had like all the branches, and I was getting a T-Mobile Razor phone, the flip phone, and it was like the coolest thing to have. So like I got that, and I'm like walking through, and then I just see it, and I was like, and my buddies, like 3 of them joined the Marines, and they were still in boot camp, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I walked in, went to the Marines initially, and then they all got out of boot camp. And they called me. The first thing they did was call me because I was like sending them like letters and stuff, like I'm gonna join the Marines. And they were like, dude, like I got so screwed over from my recruiter, like I'm doing this job that doesn't even correlate to what I do, because like you can't really pick your job in the Marines. Like it's just what they give you is what they give you, more or less. Like there's some other stipulations with it, but so then they were like, dude, go to the Army. So I walked over to the Army and said, I want to be an engineer. And they were like, as long as you qualify. And I went in and I qualified, so I became an engineer. My dad, like when I told him I wanted to join, he was like, think about it for 1 month. Don't be so immediate with it. Like if you want to do this, think about it for a month. And at the end of the month, if you want to do this, then I fully support your decision. That's what I did. Like every day it was just more and more and more. I wanted to join the Army. And by the end of the month, I said, yes, I still want to do this. And he like kind of came with me at that point. And we sat down and, kind of made it happen, I guess. I honestly, personally love being there. It's where I feel most alive. Things are simple. Like your life pretty much consists of do work. Once you're off for the day, like, most people like take a shower or go to the dining facility. You get back to your room. You might talk to people on like Facebook for a little, watch a movie or like a TV show, masturbate, and then go to sleep, and then do the same thing all over again. It was like there's like no regrets there. Like I jumped out of planes. I loved all of it. I was in strikers. I did cool striker stuff and everything. I was in scout platoon doing sniper stuff and reconnaissance stuff. For me it was awesome. Like there was some hard times, but all of it was awesome.
What was it like off deployment?
Good, because I could like eat Taco Bell again and I can eat all these good foods again, but like you're never really the same. Like a part of you is always there. Like I'll always be the man in the desert. Like it's just like that ending scene of like Jarhead. That's a very real statement. When you come back and you're looking in like the Walmart uh lot, and you're looking at all the cereals and stuff. When you're just standing there like staring into nothingness, like that's a real thing. It's not for everybody, but it does happen to a lot of people. You're never the same again. Like like I'm so empty. Just like I love my daughter, you know, I like, love my parents and stuff, but like I don't understand it anymore. It just doesn't have a meaning to it. I might cry for a day or maybe even not even that. Just things don't compute because you're just broken down so much in your career. The longer you go, the worse it gets. To where like at the end of it, you're just like this void. And some people can live through it. Some people seek, mental help like I did. And then, some people kill themselves. Like it's a very normal thing for us. But like I'll never change what happened. I think it was good for my character and for kind of the development of myself and like the lives that I've changed for the better because of it. In the military, there comes a crossroads when you make a certain rank. One of three things becomes available to you when you get up to like sergeant, staff sergeant. So you have drill sergeant, you have recruiter, and you have instructor. If you become an instructor, you're just teaching new soldiers how to do the job that you do. When it comes to those jobs, you kind of need them to progress even higher in rank. It's called a broadening assignment. You do one of these jobs for the next, 2 to 3 years, and if you don't choose something, the Army is going to choose for you, which is what happened to me. I was applying for drill sergeant, and I got an email one day that said, "Hey, congratulations, you have been auto-selected to be a recruiter for the Army." So I wasn't too happy about that. So I decided like I was going to get out because it was my last year anyways. So if I were to stay in, I would have to be a recruiter. That's kind of how they lock you in. So like if you stay in, you have no choice. So I was like 4 months from getting out. I talked to some friends who were recruiters, and they kind of gave me their real, aspects about it. And for me, it seemed like a positive thing because it was like the career counseling to where I could help people. So I said, okay, I'll do this. So I re-enlisted to stay in, and I went to recruiting school and then got my place where I was going to do recruiting at. A recruiting school is 6 weeks and 4 days of the dumbest waste of time. All it is just regulations, regulations, regulations. They teach you different classes. So all these different leaders would come in to teach this class or to teach this class, and each time the very first question or statement that they would come out with is, who here feels that they won't get promoted because they're becoming a recruiter? It made me realize like the reason they're saying that is because that's a real thing, because there's probably statistics out there that show that people who go recruiting, this is what kills your ability to progress in the military. And that was actually what ended up being the case. It's a career killer for people who go into the recruiting field. People who go into the drill sergeant field or the instructor field, like you're leading soldiers. So like it just looks better on your evaluation reports that get once a year. If you are a combat job going into a non-combat related field, you have been off of the line, which means like not doing your job for 3-4 years. They're not going to make you the next rank in a job that you haven't done for 4 years. So I did it in Kentucky. That was like my main area of response. Like I had like a certain city, but like it was in Kentucky. So like it took me like 6 months to get somebody in, and like that's kind of like a big no-no. Like you have like quotas to make and all this kind of stuff. So one of our recruiters, this is when I first got there, I was brand new, I didn't know anything about recruiting. One of the guys in my office, he never recruited, and I didn't know why. So then after he left and, he went to a different duty station, I found out why that was. So, he was a sergeant first class, and he, I'm trying to figure out the best way of putting this. So the reason that he wasn't allowed to recruit was because he had relations with a high school female, like a 16-year-old, 15-year-old. So when her information broke, because I don't know if somebody found her, they found each other, like people found them together, whatever it was. I think that she came clean about it, if not mistaken. And she came clean about it to her parents, which then, when they saw the text messages and the Snapchat pictures of them, doing things or whatever, and then she reaches out to the administration, and then that school administration reaches out to the FBI or something, and there's an investigation because of it. It destroyed our relationship with that school, and it took the next generation of recruiters that came in to replace everybody, almost 2 years to gain the friendship back of that school. Because where I'm at, it's very community based. Everyone, cares about each other. So, when they see one person in uniform messing up, everyone in uniform messes up. The first guy that I put in, I actually made him an airborne infantryman, and come to find out that he was going to the exact unit that I came from. So he was going to know all the same leaders that I did and everything. And I remember he had this, he took a chainsaw to his leg on accident. He was cutting through some wood and took a chainsaw to his leg. So he had this massive scar that I had to get the processing center to, write a waiver for so that he could join the military, because you have to make sure you still have full function and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he was my first guy. He was super awesome. He was 18, 19, and he was actually one of the guys, my unit was the one that you saw on the news where we were leaving Kandahar, when Biden first took over, where the people were falling out of the plane and all the Taliban were standing between me and you apart, and all that terrible things were happening, and we left all that equipment behind. He was a part of that process. So when he came to me, maybe not even 6-8 months ago, he was a completely different person. He didn't look the same, he didn't act the same. He had that dead inside look that I had after my first deployment because of the things that he went through. If somebody wanted to go infantry like I was, I would actually pull them to the side and say, hey, look, I love my job as the infantry, being infantry, but this is going to be your reality. There's going to be good days where you get to do cocaine with the boys and go do all this cool stuff and, get in fights and stuff like that, and you have cool stories. But then, do you see that it's raining outside right now? You're going to be in that. You're going to be in the mud and the dirt, and it might be cool for a little bit, but 6 months later, a year later, do you still want to be out there freezing in the winter time when maybe some of your other friends who are in the better fields of the army, they might be able to stay inside all day. Me, I can kind of confront them and say, hey, look, this is the realities on this. Is there good things that can come from the army? Absolutely. It provided me a great life. It's not for everybody, but then you have the other side where they're all your dreams can come true, and you're never going to hold a weapon unless you want to, and you're going to have all these good meals, and you're going to get these you're going to be living in the Hilton Express all the time, and so it just depends on who the person is. But typically the ones who can lie like that, it will eventually come back around, and the person won't ship, which then we get a big smack on the hand because of it. It's always the recruiter's fault. Even if your leadership pressured the kids so much to where they decided they don't want to do it anymore, it's still my fault. They just feed them this line of shit, and sometimes it comes back around, and then sometimes it doesn't come back around. We had a guy in our office who kind of did that. He would falsify things with them. He was putting in guys left and right. He was like the recruiter to beat, essentially. Like, we couldn't beat him because he was always putting people in. But then, because our community is so small, those kids started finding out from those other kids who he was putting in when they got out of basic training, and they were calling saying, hey, he fucked me over. And then that broke out into the community. When somebody doesn't ship, we call them like a loss. So that counts against you. Like, that's a bad thing. So he started taking like 4 losses one month, 5 losses the next month, 4 losses the next month. And like, that's a really bad thing to happen for him. So, and it's like, he's trying to act like why is this happening to me? When we're like, dude, it's because you're a piece of shit and you're lying to all these people. Like, that's why it's happening. And the thing is, like, when you go to the processing station, you're there with all of the other branches. When we're waiting for our people to process, we have like a waiting room for the recruiters. So you're in there with Marines, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, and you'll hear that, like, them saying like, oh, I got this guy over. Like, you'll see like the scumbags of the recruiting field, and like typically the good ones will kind of keep away from them and stuff, but you do hear it all the time. And again, like, you'll find the good ones who say, oh, look, I got this guy this super cool job, and that'll motivate you to kind of do the same thing. Or I'm having sex with this person who I'm putting into the military, and hopefully I don't get them pregnant before they ship off to basic training. Like, that happens all the time too, where you have sexual relations with the people that you're putting in. And let's say they have like a single mom who's like in her 50s or something, and she's attractive, and like, as soon as their son or daughter goes to basic training, you're going to start having sex with their mom and stuff like that while they're gone. Like, that happens all the time too. It's a bragging right for a lot of those people. So they're like, oh, look at, I tapped that, blah blah blah. And drill sergeants do the same thing. It's in instructors, it happens all the time. That relationship with high schooler things is so common. It happens everywhere with every single branch. Like, when you see these teachers and stuff that have like sexual relations with these other high schoolers and stuff, like, it feels like it's almost crazy to think about. But then when you're like in our shoes, that's a very real and kind of like easy to do thing. The people who get voluntold to do the recruiting stuff, it's called detailed recruiting. So you do it for 3 years, and then you go back to your normal job, and you get to do your normal job. And then after a year of being a recruiter, you get the option of becoming a permanent recruiter. So that's what you do for the rest of your career, is permanent recruiting. So, and that opens up options. Like, you're never going to deploy again. You're never going to be in the field again. You're never going to shoot your weapon again. So there's like, and you typically get more family time, but not really. A lot of people will go to that side and realize, like, once they do that, they're like a part of the fold. Like, they're like a part of the masonry, like the masons. Like, they get their own set of rules that they get to do whatever the fuck they want. And the recruiting command is gonna take care of them and shield them. So like, when people do that stuff where they touch little, touch high schoolers and stuff, or have sex with them, or whatever it is, they protect them because they're a part of it. But the detailed guys, they treat us completely differently, and they ostracize you, so you have a different set of standards that the permanent guys don't have to abide by. There's a lot of different avenues of approach. You can go out to like your local high school, do your cafeteria setup, you put up your table and you got like cool items for people to get, and like talk to different high schoolers. We would be in the office for the next portion, making thousands of phone calls every single day, text messages, social media, to get nothing, essentially. Like, it's kind of hard to come to somebody and say, hey, do you want to join the military, when their college is fully paid for, and then somehow convince them that their fully paid for college isn't worth it, and that you should come join the military and stuff. And we can do like events and stuff like that as well, but typically it was a lot of phone calls, and then going to high schools and like borderline stalking these kids to try and get them to join. The only ones we really care about are the juniors and seniors. That's what matters most. They don't know what they want to do yet. If they don't know if they want to go to college or if they can even afford college, we can do that for you. The Army can take care of that for you. Are you going to go into college while you're in the Army? 90% I'll say no. You're not going to have the time for it. And even if like you have like you're online with it and you need to get like a project in or something or assignment put in, the leadership doesn't give a shit. If you need to go to the field, they're going to send you to the field regardless. They don't care about your internet access and your success. Like they just don't, because the mission always comes first. It always comes first over everything. But what the military doesn't understand is the people are what makes the mission. So if you don't have the people on your side or the right motivation or mentality, they're not going to be there to help complete the mission to the effectiveness that you're looking for. The big mentality with the leaders there, because like they're all like we say like they're drinking the Kool-Aid. They're so like in this world of like recruiting that nothing else matters to them. Their families don't matter. Nothing else matters. They want you to, call these kids 10, 12, 15 times in like a month. Again, reaching out via text message, somehow finding their Snapchats or their Instagrams and reaching out to them there. And then when you find somebody who might have interest, you're like pursuing them at school. Like if they don't reach out to you on the text message, you already know what school they go to and what teachers they have, and all the administration is going to let you do whatever you want. So, because you're wearing a uniform. So I'll go find that kid and, try and, not myself, thankfully, but there are other recruiters that like will bully them essentially into saying, okay, you're going to come to the office, or you're going to, we're going to talk about the military and stuff. The leadership who's in charge of the recruiting, they don't care about the recruiters, even if you are permanent or non-permanent. They just treat you like so poorly all the time, because the only thing that matters is the mission. The suicide rate and divorce rate is like through the roof in terms of recruiting. So like we had this instance, this leader got pushed to the edge, and one morning before everyone else got into work, this was in Tennessee, this boss of this recruiting station, got to his limit. And so he pretty much went into his office one morning, sat down, and just blew his brains out right in the middle of the station, and killed himself. And he left behind 3 kids. And the leadership at that time, like the really high up there, the sergeant major, especially the sergeant major, like he's an absolute piece of trash, and I can talk about him all day. He didn't care. He was just like, okay, he's dead. Now who's the next guy who's going to replace him? So, and he was very open about it. Like the next day he came into their office, like they're still picking brain matter off of the wall. And he's just like, hey guys, like I know that this happened, but like you guys still have to make the mission. How do you tell somebody that? Even at his funeral, the sergeant major showed up, and there were other civilians who used to do recruiting. They retired, and then they came back to do it as a civilian. That sergeant major and these civilians were in a circle at the funeral. Like the wife and the children are over there like mourning, the whole family's mourning, and all he was talking to them about was who's going to be the next guy to take over his position. Their leadership makes them work like 7 days a week from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. So these people who have families, have children, they don't see them wake up. They don't put them to bed. They don't go to their baseball games and their tennis games. Like, they don't see their spouses, their wives or husbands. Like they just don't have that luxury. They just have to keep pushing to make mission, and the leadership doesn't care. Like they're literally waiting for you to kill yourself so that they can put the next guy into your seat and just continue pushing through. They have the programs in place to help the people, but like at the end of the day, they don't care. They just, okay, you had your braking limit, cool. Now let me grab the next guy and let's see how long this person lasts for. Our systems only reflect what the Army needs at that time. So if they only need infantry, cook, water purification specialist, that's what, like, for me, I'm not going to push you into that position because I want you to get what your dreams and aspirations are. But the people above me, all they want to do is make that number. They have to go talk to my boss. And when they sit in there, they're going to say, oh, the infantry is just like military intelligence. Here, take this job and sign for 4 years or 6 years. Sometimes they'll leave and sometimes they don't leave for basic. But the ones who do leave, what happens? They don't like the job because that's not what they were looking for. But the boss, the recruiting command, they don't care about that stuff. They're just there to make numbers at the end of the day. Again, it's like the mission is what matters. Like the soldiers, like we don't, and this is like an army wide thing. That's why you see like the things like Vanessa down in Fort Hood where she's murdered and killed by another leader. Like that stuff is so common, and they, especially Fort Hood, they try to cover it up. Like they really do their best to cover up all that stuff because you don't want to be seen in a bad light, but it happens all the time. So this was like maybe a few months ago, maybe a year ago now. So like she was being like sexually harassed by her leadership, like this one specific leader. And she was reaching out to people saying, hey, he's like sexually advancing towards me and harassing me. Again, like leaders just don't care. She wasn't heard. And she told that leader who was doing that, hey, like, I'm going to tell on you. So he bashed her over the head, knocked her out, dragged her into the armory, which is like where we keep all of our weapons and stuff, and like proceeded to like cut her into a bunch of pieces and then put her into a weapons case. And then he like brought it home and then got his girlfriend, like they put a bunch of cement in there and then they buried her. But the thing was is that Fort Hood didn't do anything. They tried to cover it up, acted like it never happened. And then when the family started catching traction with like different newscasting places, they had no choice but to like start looking for her because they didn't care. They weren't going to look for her. And once they found out like, oh, she's buried in this freaking marshy lagoon and stuff, and again, leadership, they just do what they need to do to get to to the next subject. Like they're like, okay, all these like rape is so bad in the military, rapes, assaults. Like us as recruiters, when we go through the vaxing process of like seeing who's qualified and who's not, especially on the permanent recruiter end, we have so many that like we can find your police records of like if you've ever been charged, all that kind of stuff. Mental things that have been wrong with you, I can find that. I could find anything. So there are recruiters who like the person that they're trying to put in, they know that they are sexual assaulters. They know that they're rapists. They know that they're this, but they take that paperwork and they put it away, and then they put in the good stuff. And then now that person's in the military, and what are they going to do? They're going to go and rape somebody else. They're going to go and beat their wives or, beat their children and stuff. But they still like, they don't have an issue with that. They don't care. Even some of the leadership knows that they're doing that, and they don't care about it because it's making that quota. She sent out messages to her family saying like, hey, I'm being harassed and all this kind of stuff. And then like the messages just stopped after she kind of reached out saying, hey, like, I'm not having a good time in the military. These bad things are happening. And then like she just went completely silent. So they were like reaching out to her leadership saying, hey, like, where's my daughter? I haven't heard from her in 4 or 5 days. And the leadership just like pushed it off. Like maybe she went AWOL. Like maybe she like, ran away, and we're not going to take the time and energy to like look for her. We're just going to chalk it up as a loss and like we don't give a shit. So then like they reached up to the higher form of leadership, like on Fort Hood. So they just kept going higher and higher, to like, lieutenant colonels and generals, and none of them gave a shit because again, like that, they don't care. And then once they started getting out to these newscasting places saying, hey, our daughter's been gone for 2 months, can you get something out there? Then it started catching traction, and then like when they realized, oh, something did happen. And then once that news got out, like the whole entire country, especially in the DC area, there was a bunch of movements, of like, kind of like these hashtag Me Too's of like trying to, say, hey, look, like this is a very common thing in the military. Like this happens all the time. Back in the day when an investigation happened, we left it inside of the military. So a lieutenant or a commander would be put as like an investigator. Even though that's not his job, they'd make him an investigator to prove if it was true or false. And, again, if you are kind of like in the in crowd, they would, sweep it underneath the rug and say, oh, it was inconclusive. The Army can kind of dictate what happens. But now, because of what happened with Vanessa, now it's federal. So now outside sources like the CIA and FBI and all that, they're the ones who take control of what happens, and they're the ones who make sure that what's happening is really happening and stuff. So it's out of the control of the military now. I'm gonna let my cat out real quick. Hold on. 2 seconds. When it comes to that, are you trying to get her in? Hold on. I mean, you can literally pick her up and throw her in here. She'll be fine. Stella. Stella, baby. Hold on. Oh man, I'm trying to like figure. There's like so much information I'm trying to remember. And I just recently got out, so I wasn't the best recruiter, and it was more so because I told people the truth and didn't falsify things. And it's kind of harder to get somebody in when you tell so much of the truth as opposed to just kind of bluffing it for them. When you don't do well for 3 months straight, you get 3 zeros in a row, you get nobody in. You have to get retrained on how to do recruiting. It's a 3-month course that they put you through where they essentially run the basics 2 times. So you kind of go through the same recruiting college that I went through to become a recruiter. You have to do that 2 more times, but at your own leisure, kind of. So I didn't really care for that thought process, that mentality. It was, you're wasting your resources on somebody who's getting out. So when I was going through the retraining, I was like, if I'm 7 months, 6 months from getting out of the military, the main thing you should be concentrating on is getting out of the military. We have a program called the Soldier for Life program, which is supposed to take a year, and they kind of teach you how to be a person again and try to help you get a job and how to like wear business suits and all this like necessary stuff to like be a human being again. We have something called like the open door policy, and the open door policy is kind of like, if you have an issue that you feel needs to be resolved, you can go to like the highest leaders and kind of like convey your issues, and everything more or less kind of stays within the closed doors, but they typically will resolve the issue. Sometimes they don't, which is why you see that the rape stuff and the killing, so they just kind of sweep in. If it's somebody they know and they like, they're going to sweep underneath the rug. So you kind of have to be careful on who you talk to when you use that open door policy, and said, hey, look, if I still have to do the course at the end of this, I have no problem with this. It's just, if I'm only 6 months from getting out anyways, I have to find a job, I have to do this, I have to make sure that I'm successful so that I can put food on the plate, for my child. He came out and literally just said like he didn't give a shit. The only thing that mattered to him was completing the mission. So it's like, he was like, you're gonna do the course and you're gonna get something out of it, and you're gonna continue to put people in until the very last day that you're in the Army, because at the end of the day, the Army and the mission comes first over your own personal issues of having to take care of your family. They're gonna fluff up everything that they want, or they're gonna say, hey, look, we got you your job, and then they're gonna falsify your paperwork to where it shows that you're going into military intelligence, or like you're gonna be a linguist and speak like Chinese, and then like on the side is like your actual documentation where like you're gonna be a cook, and like life's gonna absolutely suck. It's gonna suck for you for the next 4 years, and you won't know it until you get to basic training, and then your drill sergeant tells you, hey, this is what your actual job is, because your recruiter fucked you. I'm not trying to talk people out of the military. The military can be a great thing, but people need to know the realities of what can happen what has happened and like what will happen in the future, do your research. I would definitely say like it sucks because the military mitigates so much like what jobs you're gonna get. Like these are jobs you have, you're gonna have to deal with it. Because they're just trying to get you in. But if you have the opportunity of like really picking your job, like just push into aviation, push into UAVs, push into medical. Signal's pretty good at what's like other like there's other good aspect. But if you're trying to go do like cool infantry Call of Duty stuff, like just know like life isn't gonna be like all like peachy for you. I typically now I push people to the Air Force. The Air Force, even though it does have its negatives as well, their lifestyle is like way better, and their opportunities, their perks, like they have it better. So I push them there.
Your daughter is interested in joining the military. What do you tell her?
I think if it were in the future, I'd have to, pay attention to what's going on in the world, and because like I don't want her to like push into Ukraine. My mentality now is kind of like, young men die to fight an old man's war, and that's just that what happens nowadays. Is we just can continue to push into these conflicts. So like, I would have to see what's going on at the time, and really make sure that there's actual change that's happened in the military for the better, to where it gets back to those good days where people were revered and respected. So I would give her the real spiel. Hey, look, this is the positives and negatives, but understand as a woman that these are the real tragic things that can actually happen to you if you were to push yourself into that kind of field.
If you could tell everybody in the world one thing, what would it be?
Oh man, that's deep. I just say like, no matter how low you get, like, know that people are there for you. Always maintain your integrity for yourself. Like, the world is not worth, being a liar. Like, it's just, you're gonna gain true, deep, lifelong friends by maintaining your integrity and like your truest self.